Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to say a few words on the supplementary budget presented by the good Honourable Treasurer today. But firstly, let me congratulate you on behalf of my people of Ialibu-Pangia. Lo election belah you, one-time Deputy Speaker belah you, lo displasia. Very well-deserved victory. And I thank the people of Manus for re-electing you to come into this honourable house to maintain this position. Also, let me extend my congratulations on behalf of my people to Prime Minister and his deputy and all the ministers, and of course, all the members of Parliament, especially those new members who are joining us in this Parliament. We wish you well over the next 5 years. But firstly, let me congratulate the Treasurer for a timely presentation of the supplementary budget, reflecting the conditions of the economy as we face today, especially right after an election, which has certainly stopped particularly the business houses and the entire economy of performing. And to try and capture the confidence of the people to try and invest more in our country, a supplementary budget is needed, and this is a timely reflection. I also welcome the conversation about presentation by the Treasurer that there is been a bit of a windfall in revenues for 2022. I don't know whether I'm reading the supplementary budget well or not, but that windfall is not being reflected in the supplementary budget bill that has been presented. Usually, of course, we always state, normally from previous experience, the amount of windfall that has been received or estimated to be able to be received in a calendar year should be reflected before an allocation of expenditure. But that is not happening, so I probably hope that it's just an oversight, but hopefully we can correct it. But Mr. Speaker, I also note that the Treasurer is talking about the size of the economy, and yesterday I understand that the Prime Minister made similar remarks, that it is growing, the GDP is growing to 200 billion over the next 5 to 10 years. Again, that is a welcome news. But I want to say that we have to be very cautious about this. Whilst welcoming the increase in the size of GDP and the increase of the size of the economy, we have to also observe where it is coming from. Mr. Speaker, as the Treasurer stated, the oil and gas prices have gone up, record prices, in fact, globally. Gold and copper and all the other commodities have gone up, which is reflecting the growth in the size of the economy in our country. It does not truly reflect the other commodities that we have. When you look at coffee and oil palm and cocoa and copra and all the other commodities, in fact, the number of exports that we are doing have gone down, although the prices are high. These are areas where it affects, Mr. Speaker, thousands and thousands of our people who are working the land to earn a living out of those commodities. When the collapse of commodity prices like copper, oil, and gas comes down, you will see that we will be in a very precarious position. So we need to, when allocation of resources, I feel that the Treasurer needs to take into account when he prepares for the 2023 budget, that he needs to consider making sure supporting these industries, given that the Prime Minister has already made resource ministers, especially for agriculture and all the other commodities. They need to be serious about why we are wanting to address that. Funding has to be allocated to support those ministers and, of course, those departments that will be created to make sure that the vision that they have is being delivered. So, Mr. Speaker, I think apart from the key expenditure items that Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer is talking about, and the need for it to be increased in spending to meet the demands of those departments and those sectors, Mr. Speaker, I feel that revenue needs to be addressed. Revenue measures need to increase. We cannot continue to go to central bank and print money. We must try and build the economy so we have enough revenue for the government to meet these expenditures that we are talking about. And I think that we have to learn from some of the other global players, and especially big economies like the United States. Let me remind this House that when Trump took over the presidency in the United States, he drastically reduced the taxes, both personal and, of course, company taxes. And people thought that it was going to reduce the revenue. In fact, it had an opposite effect. It gave confidence on spending by people and, of course, businesses. As a result of people having more money in their pocket, they were spending more in the economy, generating business confidence. And as a result, the economy grew and employment grew. Today, we have a situation in our country, Mr. Speaker, where a lot of people are unemployed. They are not earning income to maintain or sustain themselves. That is why, after this very bruising election, I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to make sure that we invest so that our people have enough money in their pocket to try and make sure that confidence returns in consuming and also in investing in our economy. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that it is timely that a good treasurer should relook at reviewing some of the taxes for both personal and company tax. Second issue is, Mr. Speaker, as I said, the cost of living is increasing all the time. Inflation is increasing, and there is no serious, Mr. Speaker, agenda coming from the treasurer and his team about addressing inflation. Apart from allocation of the subsidies for consumer items that has been allocated in the supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, there is no addressing of how we can curb the inflation that is going up. The prices of goods and services, especially store items, are increasing probably on a weekly or daily basis, Mr. Speaker. And that is now a subject of everyday conversation by our people. And that is because, Mr. Speaker, real wages for our people have not increased since the last minimum wages, the setting that we have done many years back. I think it was over 5 years ago. So government needs to both put a plan together for inflation management and, of course, at the same time, immediately review the minimum wages for our people. People who are earning less than 20,000 kina a year are not able to maintain their families properly for the whole year in cities like Port Moresby, Lae, Goroka, and many other parts of our country. That is why those two issues need to be done, because inflation, as a result of inflation going up, the interest rates are going up. If the banks are charging more money, that means less and less businesses and less people are going to borrow money from the banks. And the economy starts to slow down. But that is the reality of the economy we are facing today. Whilst we are enjoying all this windfall and revenue coming from oil and gas, that is temporary. We have no control over the global prices, Mr. Speaker. We have absolutely no control. We are dictated by global demand and supply and circumstances like Ukraine war that is happening today. And as a result of that, those prices are now at high levels, but it will come down, Mr. Speaker. It will come down, and I believe that we need to be prepared for it. And we have an opportunity to do that in the 2023 budget that I think we will be presenting in November, and I urge the Treasurer to look at it. Mr. Speaker, I see the expenditure item, just to finally conclude, Mr. Speaker, I see the expenditure item, some of the cuts that the Treasurer has done in the 2022 budget, like 20 million kina for rural infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, these are areas where Papua New Guineans need more. Rural communities, 85% of our population live in the rural communities. Infrastructure is what they need to try and survive and earn their income and look after their families, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, cuts in SME. You know, this is a pillar policy of the government, Mr. Speaker. And I see that there's a cut of about 30 million kina. Mr. Speaker, we need to rethink about the seriousness, about whether we are serious in addressing the SME opportunities for our people or not. Because taking money away from them is not going to help the situation. And the other issue about a cut of 50 million kina for Bougainville restoration program, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Bougainville is again going to be a major issue for our country. We need to be serious about how we are funding Bougainville. And we cannot continue to keep on allocating money and then cutting just because we have to balance the budget. We must be serious about some of these key major initiatives that the government is required to attend to. And I think that it is important that we continue to do so. Second issue is that 611 million kina that the Treasurer is talking about, Mr. Speaker, that is doing to supplement the household expenditure for all our people. Again, Mr. Speaker, let me put it this way. The major subsidy is going to fuel companies, and that is also necessary. But not every Papua New Guinean has a car and going to go and buy fuel. Not everyone is going to go and buy fuel. We need to be realistic about putting money into the pockets of our people. The only way we can do is by increasing the threshold of the of 20,000 kina that we're talking about, a threshold of zero tax for salaries and wages tax is fine. But we need to have a serious review. I don't think that not everybody is earning 20,000 kina. But so we should increase it up to about 30,000 kina, where most Papua New Guineans, I would say, probably 30 or 40% of Papua New Guineans are earning that kind of salary when they're security guards, taxi drivers, and so forth. We need to be serious about putting money into their pockets so they can look after their families. So, Mr. Speaker, I welcome the supplementary budget, but we must focus on areas where it will impact our people the most. And where it impacts our people is having food on the table for their families. Right now, I can tell you that the majority of Papua New Guineans are having less than 2 meals a day. And this is something that we as leaders who have been elected to this honorable house need to take seriously. We are here to serve these people, make sure that they have a better quality of living, and that is going to be achieved only by making sure that our policies that we say we are going to deliver are funded properly so that it can deliver to the expectation of our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me a few minutes to say a few words. Thank you.